What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Danny Garcia and Errol Spence Jr. Danny Garcia is mandated to fight Errol Spence, according to the WBC. The WBC president, Mauricio Suleiman, has revealed that Danny Garcia is now the mandatory to the WBC welterweight champion, Errol Spence. This was already academic that Garcia was mandatory for Spence after he beat Ivan Redcash by a 12-round unanimous decision. You remember when he got bit? Mike Tyson! And a decision in that eliminator on January 25th at the Barclays. Garcia was supposed to have fought Spence in January on Fox Sports pay-per-view, but his car crash foiled those plans. Garcia will need to wait on the Spence fight. There's no way of knowing how long it will take before Garcia gets his title shot against WBC champion Spence. How about 900 days? If the action is allowed to resume by the state commission in the U.S. this year, then we could potentially see Garcia challenge Spence. Errol said this month that he wants to fight in July. Right now, that's a little presumptuous on Spence's part to assume that boxing will resume by that point. July is only 4 months away, and the coronavirus is still tearing through the world's population, causing sickness and misery for many. Garcia can't afford to have his career sidelined for a prolonged period of time. At 31, he wants to win more world titles, and he feels he's got the power and style to unseat the IBF and WBC champ, Errol "The Truth" Spence. Now, what do I think about this fight? I think this is pretty much news of normal or normality, because he was going to fight him anyway, and that fight was canceled, okay, due to the vehicle flipping, 9-10 times, and Errol Spence having a little scratches, which was amazing, okay? The man has to be thankful, that he didn't have any other problems, but the underlying question is, Errol Spence, will he be ready to fight elite guys? Now, he's already said he doesn't want tune-ups or anything like that. And, you gotta tip your hat off to him, because a lot of people would want a tune-up. And I would understand why you would want one. But when you get to a certain level, I think that it's imperative to show that it doesn't matter what happens in your life outside the ring. That shouldn't affect what happens inside the ring. But we all already know that's not always the case, okay? And Danny Garcia is that guy with the style that could probably give Errol Spence problems. It looks like a dynamite fight, but Danny Garcia can bang, okay? Can he punch like Sean Porter? Well, I think he punches a little harder than Sean Porter. And Sean Porter gave Errol Spence problems. But remember, Spence had this coming because this is what he was asking for, okay? He wanted Keith Thurman. He wanted Danny Garcia. He wanted Sean Porter, which he got Sean Porter, okay? He fought and beat Kell Brook. He fought and beat Sean Porter in a tough fight, okay? And he's on his way to fighting other competition, right? Now, Danny Garcia is 31, so he's looking at the time, because Father Time will wreck us all. It will beat us all. It is undefeated eventually, except if you're Manny Pacquiao or something like that, but his day is coming too. Mark my words. And I regret that day. I dread that day, but that day will eventually happen. But back to Danny. Danny's the kind of guy that I feel he's come up short a couple times, and I think it was because of the opposition that he was fighting at the time. Danny and Deontay Wilder, those guys were known to be cherry pickers, because the guys that they were fighting were so far down the totem pole to the point you didn't even really know they existed. A lot of these fighters, we didn't know who they really were. And what happens when these guys get to fighting this type of opposition and they get in there with a tough fight, like Danny Garcia, Thurman, like Danny Garcia, Porter. He lost both fights, but he didn't lose by a huge margin. He gave both of those guys a good effort and a good fight. So it wasn't like they ran over him. So he's still holding his own to show that he is who he is. I just think Danny Garcia is waking up right now, and he knows, hey, I'm 31 years old, and I got to fight these top dudes. If I don't, because I'm running out of time, But that's the difference between welterweights of today versus like welterweights like Sugar Shane Mosley and Oscar De La Hoya and Ike Cortez and Fernando Vargas. All these guys, probably Vargas would probably get beat by some of these guys these days, but Sugar Shane Mosley, Oscar De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad, those guys like that, they fought each other, and it didn't take them to age 30, 31, 32 years old for it to be done. And it did take a while, okay, but it just shows you how boxing's changed over the years. When we saw Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Trinidad, by that time, it was September of 99, okay? That fight could have happened in 97, but Trinidad was with Don King, and of course, Oscar De La Hoya was with Bob Arum, okay? So, but the fight was done, and those guys were only 26 years old. Danny Garcia, by the standards of now to then, these fights really haven't happened right away, okay? But at least Danny's waking up to say, hey, you know what? The WBC is ordering this because the fight should have already happened. But of course, things happen in life. So this is what we have, and Errol Spence, I just dread that if, let's say he does get in the ring, because he's been training or whatnot, but let's say he loses, what's going to come apart, with the excuses? You know what I mean? Because that might be an excuse. So it might be a lose-lose for Danny. Danny goes in there and beats Errol Spence, and he didn't look like himself, all right? They're going to say, well, he was still suffering from the car accident, and he shouldn't have been in there, But the WBC has mandated this fight to happen. So when boxing opens back up and we are allowed to see these guys fight again, we will see who's who. But is Errol Spence really where he's supposed to be? That's the question. You guys tell me what you think. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.